How's it going, guys? Welcome to my action bar or user interface guide. Today what we're going to be doing is going over how to set up your action bar, your user interface in a way that would make sense to you. However, in this video I am not going to tell you exactly what to do step by step on how to place everything on your screen, because this is a personal experience and you want to have this set up in a way that makes sense to you and is appealing to you as well. So what I'll do is I'm going to go through how I've set up mine, the reasoning behind a certain few things, tell you about some stuff that you're going to want to have on screen, how to actually go around and edit everything nice and easily, and then I will give you some suggestions on things that will make your action bars themselves a lot easier to keep track of. And then following that, I'll give you another few little tips and a few mentions that I think is worth mentioning for people watching this sort of video, and hopefully by the end of it you will have a user interface that you enjoy, you find useful, and you can keep track of. That's the goal. Anyway, if it helps, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, or even if you're a returning viewer, check that you are subscribed, and let's get into this. Okay, so the goal for this video, of course, is to be able to turn this, which is the new player setup, the default new player thing, into something that looks a little bit more like this. Not necessarily the same thing, like I say, it has to be personalized, and you will want to use some initiative of your own initiative to move things around into a nice place that you like them. So what do you actually need to know? First off, you're going to need to know how to actually move your windows around, and then after that, which windows that you want to be able to use. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to quickly show you how to move things around and explain how that works, and then I'll tell you what windows you want to have on there, and then you guys can pause the video there, go through, design your user interface, and then you can come back to the video and continue on, and we can go through the extras that are going to be useful, like setting up your action bars and all that sort of good stuff. Okay, so first of all, if you have this little menu bar here somewhere, you might have it up here, you might have it around the side somewhere. There's a little padlock on that, you want to click that. You can also just press L on your keyboard. As a new player, this will not be bound to anything except for unlocking your little padlock. But if it doesn't work by pressing L, click this padlock and it will unlock it for you just like this. You guys will probably have it looking something like this with the big windows and stuff. If you want those to be slimmer, go into settings just like I did, go to gameplay, interfaces, appearance, and then click slim headers. That makes it nice and tidy, and it makes resizing the windows to the sizes you want so much easier. So I would suggest you do that. Once that's done, all you need to know is these little brown windows here. Once this is unlocked, the padlock is unlocked. If you drag them around, it makes it nice and easy. You can resize it by going to the corners and make it any size that you want to do. You can make some crazy sizes, but there's not much point in doing that. And then usually there is like a snap into place thing. So if I make it a little bit too big for this, and then I drag it into here, you'll see that it does automatically resize it to fit. And I'll just have to do the little adjustments there. Once you're done moving all the stuff around that you've got out, you can padlock it up. And to get more windows, you just come into the menu button here and click on something else that you want. So if I wanted the achievement path, for example, that would pop up over here, and then if I wanted to put that somewhere, for example, I may want to put it inside this little window here. I drag it down and it will create a little tab here, and I can just go through and click those tabs. And you can also drag tabs out as well. So if you already have some tabs in there, like you have your worn equipment and your backpack together like this, you can just drag one of those out of there and you can place it over here nice and easily. So we can get rid of this one that I don't want, and then you can go through and you can pick whatever you want. So if you don't have your backpack on screen, you can find it in the hero tab, and then you can click that and it'll pop up for you. Nice and easy. So you know how to work the main movement stuff and the main windows. There's some extra stuff that you're going to need to know, and that's what we're talking about next. So if you press escape, all the settings button down here, I'm going to press escape and then go to edit layout mode just here. This is going to allow you to do all the extra stuff when you go into advanced. So in advanced, you see you get these little glowing windows. These are windows that you can't see, but things you can access and move around all the time. So you'll see in this little window that I'm moving around here that there's loads of tick boxes. Now the tick boxes give things, for example, the bank. If I click this, it's going to bring the bank window up and I can move that around to places that I may want it to be. Just like before, I can go to the corner of this and resize it as well, and then you can make it into a nice little shape that you want it to be. And if you want it long so you can see loads of things, or if you just want it nice and small, then you can do that. Next up, you can scroll through these and you can just start ticking them on, but most of this stuff, or a lot of this stuff, you're not going to need to worry about too much. There's a lot of stuff in here that just isn't all that important, so you don't have to worry about that. But now that you know how to move things around, this is like all I need to show you for this bit. I'm going to go through the things that you do want to have on screen, and then I'm going to, after that, come back in here and tell you the things that you may want to move in here. But overall, you can go through yourself and tick stuff, and you can move it as you please, of course, and you can have a little mess around and see what pops up when you click stuff, but I will tell you the important stuff that you want to have on screen anyway. And that way you're not missing anything, and then you can make your own mind up on where you want to place it all. Okay, so there's not a ton of stuff that you absolutely have to have on screen. You can personalize this as well as you want to in whatever way you want to do, of course. That's the best way to do it, right? So you're used to it, you're familiar with it, and it's appealing to you. But there's a few things that I would recommend that you do have on screen, and then there's some other things that could be useful that I'm going to talk about and explain why. So let's get to that. The inventory, being the first one, is probably going to be the one of the many few things that you kind of want to have on screen, and you kind of have to have this on screen. You want access to this at all times, especially if you're being doing any sort of PVM whatsoever, because you want access to your inventory all the time, and you don't want to have it as a tab or anything like this, because if you do click off the tab by accident or you forget to move it back, you're then going to have to juggle through that while doing mechanics and stuff. So I would definitely recommend having your bag separate like this, and having it somewhere that you are comfortable reaching, whether you're clicking around. The reason mine's here and not over to the corner or something is because if I'm clicking around my character attacking the boss or something that's middle of my screen, it's not too far to move to the inventory just there. Whereas if I have to move to the corner of the screen every time, you sort of see what I mean. If I'm attacking this dummy over here like this, and then I've got to move to my inventory all over here, it's a little bit less of a trip to get to it from there. The next thing that I would probably say that you kind of have to have, especially again as a PVMer, is all 5 of your action bars. Now early on you can definitely get away with not having all of these, but as someone who's getting into PVM and you are starting to fight stronger bosses and stuff, you are going to want to have access to all of these bars. You will use them at some point. Trust me, you may think there's no way I'm filling all of these action bars up. When you start putting the abilities into these, they fill up ridiculously quick, and then when you take into account that you can put your potions in, your weapons in, your armor, your switches, all that sort of stuff, it fills up really quickly. So having access to all of these is very important. To get these on your screen, you want to go into settings, go down to combat and action bar, and then go down to action bar, and then down here it will say display additional action bars, and you want to make sure those are all on. And that way when they're all on, they'll all appear on your screen. You can resize them, drag them down where you want them to go, wherever you want them to go, and that's always useful to have those. A good thing with these, to be fair, is probably to have these kind of central a little bit. The reason that I put them central, and I would recommend maybe doing that, is because it's nice and easy to reference that. Just like your inventory being close, it's not far for you to look away from the center of your screen to see when your cooldowns are, when your health is, and all that sort of stuff. But again, if it's better for you, you can pop it off to the side, you can put it at the top if you really wanted to, so you can definitely mix it up a little bit. But I would probably suggest having it central. At least that's what I prefer to do. Other than those things, and obviously having your map, which I think you have to have anyway, I don't think there's much that you have to have on screen, right? You can get away with having the other stuff as in tabs or anything like that, but there's probably some things that I would recommend you do have. One of them being the prayers, just because that way if you haven't got everything keybinded, which I do have most of them keybinded, but if you don't have all of them, then you have access to this quickly and you can get into it, and it's just nice and convenient to have out. I have it as a tab here. The reason I have it as a tab is because I usually have my familiar here over that. As a PVMer, being able to get all the information from your familiar really quickly, being able to see it all the time, is incredibly useful, because one, you can see how many summoning points you have access to left over. You can also see how many scrolls and stuff is left in your familiar too, and you can use the buttons if you need to, like using the special attack, all that sort of stuff. Seeing your familiar, having access to that window gives a pretty good amount of information, so I find having that there pretty damn useful to have. The next thing would be the worn item interface. Now the reason I had this in the first place is not because I was on stream and I wanted people to be able to see what gear I had equipped. Now it's kind of mainly that, right? Like I don't really need the worn interface at this point, but because I'm streaming, people like to see what gear I've got, they ask questions, so it's nice to have it there. But also it's kind of cool just to have access to it when I want to like switch between gear. So if I wear a different book or something, I can toggle it on here nice and easily, but you can keybind all that sort of stuff, so you can get away with it. But early on, especially if you're getting into like switches and stuff, this can be incredibly useful to have, because when you equip something, you can physically check and like confirm with yourself that you've done that switch. You can see that your bolts did actually switch, you can see that your ring did actually switch, you can see that you did change the offhand properly or your main hand properly. Whatever you are changing, you can actually get a visual like confirmation that yes, you have done that switch. Whereas otherwise you may think you've pressed the button, you haven't pressed it, you've misclicked it or something like that, and you don't notice until the end of the kill that you either haven't swapped back to your main hand weapon or something and you've been doing way less DPS, or maybe you didn't even put your shield on in the first place and your defensive doesn't go off and you die. So having access to this is definitely pretty useful. I think especially early on it is really cool to have, so that you can just like I say, get that visual confirmation that your switches have gone through. It's really cool for learning is what I think, and even afterwards, like even now, even though it's mostly there just for me to like have it on screen for the streams and stuff and the videos. I feel like it has a lot of convenience use as well, especially like if you've got a ring equipped, for example, like a Look of the Dwarves. If you right click here, rather than like going into your worn equipment and for finding it, if you just right click here, it'll have an instant teleport option rather than pressing rub and going through the dialogue and stuff like that. So there's a lot of use to having this there, and I would probably recommend, if you do have the space for it and you don't mind having it around, then you can either have it there or put it as a tab, but you want to have access to this somewhere. Next up, a good recommendation from me is, you may think the skills are just here again because of stream and I want people to see what my levels are. Maybe it's a showing off thing, maybe I just like to show that I've got max and all the other skills and whatnot, even though it's not true max. It is what it is, guys. But no, actually the reason I keep these skills here isn't necessarily just for the stream and just to complete the look of the UI and stuff. It's because when I use an overload, I like to be able to see that my overload is still the right stats and stuff. So even if I drink an overload now, let me grab some and I'll show you what I mean. So even if I drink an overload now, you'll see my stats go up to 120, right? But if I drink the Chardonnay Brews, which I use quite a lot during PVM, you can see that my stats do still drain. And if I drink enough of these, or if there's a boss that drains my stats, I know now that I see this red thing here and I think, right, I need to use a super restore. I can get my stats back up. Of course, they go up by themselves, as you just seen. But if you are doing something where you need a lot of DPS and you've just brewed yourself down before that DPS sort of phase comes in, and you're down at 96 magic or something like that, or whatever you're using, you want to restore that up to 120 rather than doing it like a little bit lower, so to make sure you get the most out of it that you can. You don't want to wait for that, you want to restore it straight away, and that way your DPS can go off straight away. So definitely useful to have, and it gives quite a good information. And also, of course, it does also serve as quite a good overload reminder when you see red coming out the corner of your eye because your overload's expired and you've been drinking your brews and you're like, oh crap. So it's it definitely gives quite a bit of useful information along with that and other stuff as well. And I do quite like having it there just so I can keep an eye on it in the corner for certain things. Otherwise, for recommended stuff to have on your screen that's going to help you out, the final thing that I'm going to mention is going to kind of tie in together, and it's these two windows here, the defensive abilities and the magic book. Now, I would probably recommend for anyone who is learning PVM, if you're not keybinding all your defensives, like I've got most of them here, you should have your defensives window available like this is here, because defense abilities are so freaking important. They're so useful and they make PVM so much easier. You should take advantage of these when you can, and honestly these are incredible and you should learn about them. So having them available on your screen just like this, even if you haven't keybound them, like I've got most of them keybound and I still keep this here for the odd time that I may want to use something that I don't have keybound, which I don't think is very often anymore, but I still keep it here because I just like to know that it's there just in case. But having defenses ready, just like available to you here, is very useful. Whether you have it here or to the side or down the bottom, it doesn't matter, but I would suggest having your defense tab open somewhere for you to access quickly. The same goes for magic spells as well. If you're using magic, you may want to have the magic book available, because sometimes it bugs out and it'll tell you that you don't have a spell selected, or maybe you want to switch to a different spell during combat. You can do that by right clicking, just press to autocast, and it will automatically update for you, and then you can switch during combat. Like you can be running around attacking the dummy, you can right click, press autocast, and you're good to go. Having this here also means that when you're out of combat or during combat, even if you don't need this bit, you can have your teleports here straight away, meaning you can go towards retreat nice and easy. You don't need to have a keybind or anything, they're just there. So that's always really useful, and I really like this tab here. But having defense abilities available to yourself, like a quick click and a quick glance, I always find incredibly useful. So that is most of the Windows stuff that you may want to include in your user interface, like all the windows and this sort of stuff down here. The other stuff that you may want to include is like the range abilities and the melee abilities. I don't think I have melee abilities there because I never use it, and it basically doesn't exist to me, that skill, except for Bladed Dive, so I don't really have that anywhere on here. But also, you may want to have things like your drops and stuff, so it's quite convenient for you to have there. Just little things you may want to add to this. Your friends list, if you ever want to look at that, your clan list, all that sort of stuff. You want your map to be big enough for you to get around nice and easy. You can zoom in and out on your map, by the way, just by scrolling up and down on it. I like to have it all the way out, and that way you can see more in a smaller area. So that covers, like I say, all the stuff for the Windows that I would probably recommend you do have. We're going to move to that list of stuff that you may want to move around, because there is a few things in there that are going to be really useful. So let's move to that. Okay, so first off, I apologize if my voice sounds weird. I am losing it. I've got a cough, a really itchy throat, but we're going to get through this. It's okay. So next up, we're going to go through the edit layout mode, which is going to be pretty important to go through. So let's go to this and go to advanced options just like before. And then there's stuff in here. There's a few things that is incredibly useful to have access to. So we're going to go through this. And one of them, the first one that's going to be like really, really important, especially for PVMers. Again, this is kind of geared to setting up for PVM because that's what I do. And I feel like most people will probably be happy having a UI set up for that, because even without it, even if you're not doing that, the same UI kind of works like globally anyway. The buff bar. You want the buff bar and the debuff bar on there all the time. Important. You need these, okay? So your buff bar and your debuff bar, you may want to have it differently to me. I'm used to it like this from different games. It's just something that I can kind of get away with. But a lot of people say to me like, what the hell is your buff bar and your debuff bar? Why are they so close together? I'm just used to it and I kind of know where they end and start. But your buff bar is all the stuff that buffs you, like your overloads, your potions, all your good stuff, your auras, your familiar timer, as you can see. All the good stuff, right? Your debuff bar is all the negative stuff. So if you have a bleed on you, if you have anything that's been applied to you by the boss, whether it's poison, all that sort of stuff, you want to be able to sort of tell the difference between these, because it can be very important information during a fight with a boss and anything whatsoever, really. So if you're stunned, it'll be on the debuff bar. If you have your overloads or your potions, it'll be on your buff bar. So I have them close together because, like I say, at a glance, I know where the line is anyway, and I know what the icons mean, and I'm just used to it being like this. But if you want to prefer to have your buff bar all the way over here and your debuff bar all over here, and then you can sort of separate them, you know that everything on the right hand side is bad stuff, everything on the left hand side is good stuff. As long as you know that these are on screen and you can get that information, this is really important information and you need these on there. So place these in the place that you're happy with. Another thing you can do is change boss health bars. I mean, these kind of default to the middle here anyway, but you can move these around if that's something you want to do. You can put it down here if you wanted to, or literally anywhere that you wanted. So that may be another thing that's pretty useful to do. One more thing that you definitely want to be changing is the extra action button. So by default, the extra action button is somewhere down here at the bottom, which is usually goes inside your interface or your chat window. But if you want to move this somewhere, what this is it's the button that you get at Raksha and at Kerapak, and I believe at Zook as well. This is something they seem to be using quite a bit now in the game, so it's probably going to be important to move these, especially if you are doing those bosses that are out now anyway. But move this somewhere that's not overlapping, because it does overlap with all this sort of stuff. So the one last thing I'm going to mention on here that is kind of useful to know, and if I don't mention it, a lot of people will probably get bugged if I don't, so I'm going to mention it anyway, is the game view. Now the game view is the window that's in the background of your UI. So if you click this, you notice that the brown box comes up here at the top, like everything else that you can sort of reorganize. If I move my window from the bottom right here, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to get bugged by, you see the corner of the map is there, right in the corner. If your user interface covers this up, you can drag this up. And when you drag this up, what it does is it brings that up and it kind of gives you a better field of view very slightly. It's not huge, but it is kind of slightly better to do this. But other than that, that's pretty much all the stuff that you want to have on your screen. And at this point, it comes down to you setting this up, how you want to set it up, making it nice and personal for you, how you're happy with it. And that's pretty much it. There's not much else for me to say about setting up the UI. You've already got all your action bars on screen. I've shown you how to do that, and you know what all the different stuff is, the things that you probably want to have and the things that are useful to have and why I have them. So hopefully that's enough information for you to set up your own UI. Let's move on from there and talk about some stuff that's going to make your life easier when you do this, and then a couple of other things that I want to just mention just to make your lives a little bit better. Okay, so these last couple of things will be pretty quick, and that is just to help you set keybinds. When you are doing this, what I will suggest you do is sort of keybind stuff all together in your actual action bar. So if you can see here, all of my defensives are on the same action bar. They're on action bar number 6 down here, and I know where all my defensives are because I know that I've put them all on the exact same bar. I look here for my defensives, then on the next one down I've got all my gear switches. I look here for all my gear switches, and I've got all my prayers and some food in this one. And then of course this one here looks a little bit random to you guys, but for me, I know this is my extra abilities that I need to use or anything like that. I've got my limitless, got my surge and escape, blade of dive, got some ultimates and stuff in here that won't be bound up here otherwise. So this is my other like useful abilities, and I kind of get used to all those ones being placed. But having the defensives and the prayers and stuff all set nicely together makes it learning so much easier than if you just had stuff thrown all over the place randomly in whatever order you thought of and then keybind them. Because when you look, you can like, where's this? Where's that? But when you look down now, you know, like you guys probably already can tell me. All my prayers and stuff are here, all my food and my potions, all of my defenses are over here, the gear switches are there, and then there's random stuff. Like, it's easy to remember, and trust me, when you're learning, even though you've banned everything else, you want to be able to remember everything nice and easily. then of course I've got my main action bar at the top here. When you want to set keybinds, the easiest way to do it is just to right click the thing that you've got there. So I'd put my potion in first, for example. I'll take it over here, and then I'd right click that, and then I'll press customize keybind. When you do that, it'll bring you up to the actual thing here, and you press the button, whatever key that you want it to be on, and it will automatically update that for you. We've been found. we've actually, what's going on? No. So anyway, we're going to end the video here because we've been absolutely hammered. You get it. But hopefully that helps, guys. If it does, leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Thank you to the channel members that provide extra support each and every day. It is all very much appreciated, of course. Thank you all so much for watching. If there are any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I will answer as many as possible. But thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate that, and I'll see you all in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye. Thank you all, one. I appreciate it.